Welcome to the Shield Your Business from Chaos podcast, where there's no building, no people, no third-party suppliers, and no systems all combined to create Chaos the Dragon, which is battled by King Phoenix and his shield.
Hi, welcome to the Kingsbridge BCP podcast. I'm Roswitha first. I've been in business continuity for over 20 years, and one of my pet peeves is implementing a BCP planning software and doing it bad. You can never recover from that, I think. With me is Skip Williams.
Hi, my name is Skip Williams. I've been doing BCP I think right around Y2K was when I got my feet wet. I worked with my dad, who used to do business continuity planning since 1983. So I've had a lot of experience on BCP, and I've seen a lot of great plans, and I've seen a lot of less than great plans. So today's discussion could be an interesting one.
Sounds good. So today we're going to be talking about the pitfalls of using Microsoft Office for your business continuity planning rather than a specialized tool.
Ooh.
And I think we have a lot to say about that.
That could be a very interesting one, yeah, because there's a lot of good things about Microsoft Word, and there's a lot of bad things about Microsoft Word. So
going back to my pet peeve,
okay.
One of the things that the way that I would rank in order of preference is a good tool implemented well. That's kind of a no-brainer. But I think I would probably prefer using Microsoft Office over a inappropriate or not fit for use for what your company wants to do tool implemented well, because if it's not fit for use, you're not going to get the output that you really need for your particular organization's needs. Or a good tool implemented badly. It's an extremely difficult uphill battle to get a company to buy in to another tool option if they've already done one and it just didn't go well, either because the person assigned to do the planning was perhaps too experienced. The employees that needed to use the tool weren't given proper training, and it was too difficult to get them twice a year to log in because they couldn't remember what to do. Those things can all kind of make an implementation sour for the stakeholders and the users as well. So I would kind of put using Microsoft Office potentially in between the two. I've had two or three experiences specifically getting company buy-in after a bad software implementation for business continuity planning. And it took absolutely all of my persuasiveness and months and months and months of kind of working at the issue to get the company to consider another tool. And I pretty much had to promise my life away that if it didn't work, I was on the shopping block.
I was going to say, well, you're still here, so I guess it must have worked well.
It did, actually.
Yeah.
But it was a hard battle. It really was.
Well, and it's kind of funny, like Microsoft Word is a air brackets great word processing tool or a document processing tool. I don't do a lot of any advanced anything in Word because I don't need to, because of the way that my life is set up, I guess. But if you're trying to nail a nail, you don't use a screwdriver, you use a hammer. So it's a matter of using the right tool for the right process. And it's kind of like where you said about, a good tool with a bad implementation and a bad tool with a good implementation. It's kind of along those lines, because I've seen the odd good BCP written with Word, but that's because it was the one I can think of that sticks out of the top of my head was like probably 2 or 3 pages long, the entire plan from A to Z. And so many people are like, well, how can you write a BCP that's A to Z perfect from page 1 to page 3? And it just happened to be the situation that they were in, is that they were a manufacturing company that had absolute replication. It was North America, South America, Asia, and Europe. And they were absolutely redundant from each other. And all they had to do was just be able to adjust their shipping from Europe to North America. Now, I'm sure there was probably a lot of pitfalls in there because, just you can't just randomly start shipping stuff to North America without there being any like import duties and taxes and issues and stuff for this. But when we reviewed their plan, there wasn't really a lot of improvements that we could give it, and that was Microsoft Office. And the part that I think is the allure for Office is, as you said, Roswitha, where if you try to get somebody to log in every 2 years and they need to know how to use it, everybody can use Microsoft Office. Well, almost everybody can use Microsoft Office, but so as a result, it's not very difficult. But the part that we see a lot, because as we develop software for writing BCPs, we've got a whole quiver of issues with using Microsoft Office for writing their BCPs, is that it's very labor intensive to try to keep up with anything. If you try to make the smallest of change, it's just that, you can be sitting there manually, typing it in. And if you want any sort of I guess, environment that'll add any sort of mistake, having a human do that work again and again and again, repeat, it's never going to come out well.
I agree.
We'll be back with that solution after a brief message from our sponsor, Kingsbridge BCP.
Use King Phoenix and Shield with its mapping, its dashboards, its permissioning, its dependency mapping, and its automatically redacted plans to shield your business from chaos. KingsbridgeBCP.com.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good point. I was going to add to that in using Word, everybody knows how to use Word pretty much, but there aren't that many users in any given organization that are truly experts at Word. And there's a lot of neat features that people don't utilize. So, for example, one of the best things to do if you are going to use Word for writing a plan is making sure that you have your outline bar visible to you and that you correctly use styles to create your table of contents so that it automatically will update for you, and that you have your outline so that you're consistent with your level of content so that it all flows. And it's very easy to then kind of get a visual check of your plan's content if you use your outline summary,
And
which
see,
is
you got me right there with the outline bar and outline summary. I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Oh, and see, that's the thing. I mean, if you're going to write a document, especially if it's going to be a long one, that is essential to keeping material organized. So if you're the plan builder, that's great. But the minute that you kind of hand it over for other people to update, they will not use styles. What they will do is they will take the paintbrush and they will go highlight the thing that they think that they want it to look like, and then they will paint over the text that they want to change. And the problem with that is that actually, unless you choose the option of like paste text only, which is sort of beside the point, you wind up with all of these characteristics that are built into that style following you, including indentations, numbering, and then people go and they mess with the manual numbering. And then once you mess with the automated numbering and it becomes manual, your document just goes to hell. Seriously, like give it up.
Well, and as you said about as soon as you go from automated to manual, that's that heavy workload that I was talking about. Is that so? We had a client just this morning, 217 employees, so not like an insurmountable number, but what they wanted to do was they wanted to change the email address. And you're like, okay, that's not a big deal because their company name changed from like Acme to Acme Plus or whatever. So to change the email address. Well, if you're using Word, that's a manual process. If you're using Excel, you can almost make it an automated process, but it's not really a super simple automated process to get it to do it perfectly all the way across, because it'll then find everywhere else that you've referred to Acme in the plan and turn it into
And
Acme Plus, and it just, but the
there's a lot of
disasters are fraught with it from start
there's
to
a lot of
finish.
proofreading that has to be done. And if you're using Excel for any part of your plan, in my experience, the amount of time that it takes to slice and dice the data every which way to look for errors is a very labor intensive task. But if you don't do it, then you will not catch
No.
wherever, you know, data inconsistencies. And if you don't have data consistency, then when you do any kind of an extract or import with Excel, for other purposes, if you don't have data integrity, like there goes the usefulness of the data that you've been working so hard to input
Yeah.
into whichever part of Microsoft Office.
Well, and the other things that we see with it as well is that you get if you want to share it with anybody, you're like, okay, great, we've done Word. Well, there's no real way to set up, unless it's a feature in Word that I don't know about, to set up read only, which you can, because you just password protect and you can't do it. Then there's read write, which gives you the ability to edit sections of the plan as opposed to either the entire document or none of the document. And then you've got the auditor or the administrator, sorry, which would be the person who has access to the password. Well, that's all well and good. But if you can't slice and dice the content, you can't minimize what content you can see versus what databases you can see versus, who can, publish things, who can't publish things, who can hide things, who can't, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's just fraught with disaster all over the place. Now, if you're a teeny tiny company of like 5 to 10 people, yeah, you can probably get away with it because your BCP is probably going to be pretty straightforward, because generally speaking, each person wears multiple hats. So you're going to have multiple people that are going to be aware of, different processes throughout the entire thing. But as soon as you get to being anything, I wouldn't want to do a BCP in Word for a company of like 25 to 30 people or bigger, because it would just be such a disaster.
We'll be back with that solution after a brief message from our sponsor, Kingsbridge BCP.
Use King Phoenix and Shield with its mapping, its dashboards, its permissioning, its dependency mapping, and its automatically redacted plans to shield your business from chaos. KingsbridgeBCP.com.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have probably put my number maybe a little higher than yours. Probably would say, if you've got 50 or less, you could get away with it, assuming that you only have one plan builder, one person doing the BIAs and taking all that information and putting it into a Word template that you've created or found on the internet and modified to suit your needs. And that has its own issues, because the template might be very good as far as like guiding you through content, but the person who created it might not be a Word expert, and a lot of things become manual rather than using kind of the styles and the other features in Word that make it easy to organize. I would also add that the fewer people that touch the plan, the easier it is to actually use Word. And you can always generate a PDF if you really want people to just read it. And the final version should be a PDF that gets published anyway. But if you've got any people involved in the plan building process that are going to touch the document, I'm wholeheartedly with you, because it's very easy to have things get changed unintentionally. And even if you use tracking, which is kind of like my next sort of pet peeve, it's still difficult. So I love tracking, except that if you're not careful, tracking, you'll have to deal with formatting changes. And then it's like, there's like 3,000 click accept or not, as it
Well,
were, and that's really cumbersome.
and there's so many landmines in what you just said right there, whatever, like the ones that I think of is trying to do it in a Word document versus an actual proper planning tool is trying to do your BIA. Let's just start from the process from the beginning of doing a plan through to the end. Trying to do your BIA with a tool like Shield or whatever, you can set out, these are the applications that we use. These are the processes, everything like that. And then you can just select from drop downs so that everybody calls it Microsoft Office or Office 365, as opposed to Microsoft Office, Office, O365, Office 365, Word, Excel, whatever. You're just like, oh my goodness, are these all the same thing? Are they actually different? Like, how does this change? Plus, then what Shield does in its BIA is that it outlines all of your processes and it gives you your most critical processes. It gives you your most likely threats and the ones you should be planning for, because that is always done as an engine in the background that you can't see. Trying to do that in Word is impossible. Like, I mean, yeah, I guess if you're a Word wizard, you could do it, but I haven't got a clue.
It wouldn't be in any way automated. What you could do technically is if you had like a full list of tools provided by IT.
Yeah.
With whatever naming convention they say is their standard, you're going to have to force everybody else to use what that standard is, even if the business unit might say, oh, I need Word and Excel. And the IT people are saying, yeah, we're going to use like Office 365. That's our naming convention. You could create a table or you could create an Excel spreadsheet and have people fill in sort of like, okay, we're going to have a column for each department or critical process ideally, and then we're going to like put an X in all of the cells based on these application names. It gets fraught with a lot of risk. People can mistype very easily into the wrong cell, and then how are you ever going to even find that easily? Well, and the bigger the company, the more difficult that is.
And once you've got your BIA done, then, going to actually writing the plan, like you said, starting with templates or templates, depending on how you want to say it, that you get off the internet. Well, I am a strong believer in you get what you pay for. And so those are written by whomever wants to publish it. It could be Freddie and Bobby at the corner store as opposed to anybody who actually knows anything. Or you could use ones, I'm not saying that Shields are the best, but I'm saying that the ones that Shield gives you is 250 pages of templated information that has been curated over 30 years to make sure it's exactly what you're actually looking for, and you just have to go through it and edit them. But if you start with crap, you're going to end with crap. If you're not, you're going to spend an insane volume of time trying to manage and update those to whatever you need them to be. But keeping in mind that A, you don't have the time, B, you don't have the experience, and C, you don't have the knowledge of what the end goal even is supposed to look like.
Yeah, because you don't have the proper guidance.
Yeah, and it's just, and this isn't even into the maintenance side of things, which is where you have to change 240 email addresses to match whatever an email address change was. And then the last one that I can think of from the that workflow perspective is getting it out on a mobile device. Because if you leave it as a Word document with track changes turned on and you haven't accepted all the changes, if you access it from a mobile device, those track changes don't show up as track changes. They just show up as the old text. Now, if you go through and you make all the track changes and you save it as a PDF and you push it out, well, that's fantastic. Now you've got the PDF on your device, but you have no supporting documents and you still have to go find them and look for them and everything like that. Whereas if you've got a proper planning tool, it generally has a repository for documents, which will put it onto your mobile device. And it just becomes a lot easier / more intelligent. And I know that, budgets are budgets and people have budgets for it and some people don't and everything along those lines or whatever. But if you want to save yourself a whole lot of hair pulling and teeth gnashing and everything like that, just get a tool, like even an entry-level basic tool. If your company is a small enough size, you also, if you're a 50-person company, don't need a 6-figure tool either, because that's complete overkill. And so finding a good balance is critical.
Absolutely, I agree. So I think we might have more to say on this topic another time, but for today, I think we are wrapping it up. We hope you found this information useful. Check back in with us and find our podcast wherever you listen or watch. And we'll see everyone next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.